The movie opens up with a young traveler named Richard arriving in Thailand, searching for something more exciting than the boring life he left behind. Instead of fancy hotels, he stays in a run-down backpacker hostel, the kind where the walls are so thin you can hear everything happening next door. One night, Richard struggles to unlock his room. Luckily, a girl staying next door named Francoise, who is traveling with her boyfriend, helps him get inside. Later that night, as Richard lies on his bed trying to sleep, he clearly hears the couple doing their business through the thin walls. But his night gets even stranger. Suddenly, a weird man from the other room named Daffy starts talking to him. Daffy looks unstable, almost crazy, but he tells Richard something fascinating about a secret island, a forbidden place with a perfect beach, pure white sand, crystal clear water, and no tourists. Richard doesn't believe a word of it. It sounds like the ramblings of a madman. But the next morning, something shocking happens. When Richard opens his door, he finds a map pinned to it. Confused, he immediately goes to check on Daffy. But when he enters the room, he finds that Daffy has taken his own life. After speaking with the police, Richard returns to his neighbors Francois and Etienne and shows them the mysterious map. He tells them about the hidden island Daffy described. Instead of thinking it's crazy, they get excited. The idea of finding a place where no tourists go feels like the ultimate adventure. The three of them travel almost 500 miles in a single day, hopping between buses and boats until they finally reach a remote beach. Etienne explains that the island they're looking for is actually part of a national park, which means it's completely off-limits. But there's a loophole. They can reach a nearby island and swim the rest of the way. Before Richard continues the journey, he once again stays at a cheap hostel, and once again he can't get into his room, this time because he lost his key. Two surfer guys next door invite him to hang out with them. During their conversation, Richard mentions the legendary island with the perfect beach. The surfers laugh and say they've heard the same story about a beach with pure white sand and glowing water, but they believe it's just another urban myth. The next morning, Richard leaves them behind, but before leaving, he secretly gives them a copy of the map. Soon, Richard, Francois, and Etienne take a boat to the last island before their destination and camp there for the night. In the middle of the night, Richard wakes up and sees Francois taking pictures of the star-filled sky. Richard starts saying something philosophical, that somewhere in the infinite universe there might be another planet exactly like theirs, with another version of them taking pictures of the sky at the same moment. Francoise laughs and shuts him down immediately. She says that's the usual pretentious crap American guys say to French girls when they're trying to sleep with them. The next day, the trio stands at the edge of the island, staring at the ocean, trying to estimate the distance they need to swim. If the island is too far, they might not make it. But Richard suddenly shouts, "If we don't try, we'll never know." And without hesitation, he jumps into the water. After a long and exhausting swim, they finally reach the mysterious island. But when they head inland, they discover something unexpected, a massive hemp plantation hidden deep in the jungle. Richard notices something strange. A monkey tied to a rope sits next to a sleeping guard holding an AK-47. The monkey suddenly wakes the guard up. The three travelers hide inside the field as more armed guards arrive and begin searching the area. At one point, the monkey almost exposes them, but Richard sprays it with water and they manage to escape unnoticed. At this point, Francois and Etienne begin having second thoughts, but Richard refuses to turn back. He is determined to find the paradise he came looking for. So they continue through the jungle until they finally reach a massive waterfall at the edge of a cliff. The two guys start arguing about how to climb down safely, but before they can decide anything, Francoise just jumps. She disappears into the water below and shouts for them to follow, so they jump too. They scream and cheer from the adrenaline of the insane drop, but suddenly, someone starts clapping behind them. A man named Kitty appears. He tells them it took him an hour to gather the courage to make that jump. Then he leads them somewhere unexpected. The three travelers thought they would find a few backpackers living in caves. Instead, they discover a full community, people living there permanently, growing food, building houses, a hidden society that has existed for years. The group takes them to their leader, Asal. They show her the map that Daffy created. Asal explains that Daffy was actually one of the founders of this community, but over time he slowly went insane. She tells them that the community survives because of one simple rule: privacy. Then she asks a very important question. Did you give this map to anyone else? The three travelers immediately say no. Satisfied, Saul throws the map into the fire and burns it. Later that day, they are finally taken to the lagoon, and when Richard sees it, he understands everything. Crystal blue water, surrounded by tall cliffs, the most beautiful beach he has ever seen. At that moment, he realizes something incredible. They didn't just find a rumor, they actually found paradise. The next day, Saul gathers the newcomers and finally explains how this hidden community actually survives. Everyone here works together. They grow their own food, build their own houses, and live almost completely self-sufficiently. The only time they leave the island is occasionally sailing back to civilization to trade some of their homegrown weed for rice and other supplies. Saul also explains something important. The farmers who run the huge hemp plantation on the other side of the island agreed to leave them alone, but under two strict conditions. No new people can come to the island, and no one touches their crops. Soon, Richard begins settling into this strange new life. The community teaches him how things work. 3 Swedish members show him how to spearfish, and surprisingly, he picks it up pretty quickly. Days start blending together. People fish, swim, play sports, and relax under the sun. Everyone seems to be happy. The place truly feels like a perfect paradise. But there's one person Richard doesn't like: Saul's boyfriend, Bugs, the community's carpenter. Bugs constantly mocks Richard, calling him a freeloader who contributes nothing. Meanwhile, the community has a strange tradition. Every new member must give a tattoo to the next person who arrives. Life on the island seems peaceful, but Richard slowly realizes something else, something he desires, even more than paradise: Francoise. One day, while Richard is staring at her, Kitty walks over and explains all the reasons why Richard can never be with her. She already has a boyfriend, and things inside this small community can get complicated very quickly. Shortly after, one of the members complains about a terrible toothache and asks to go back to the mainland to see a dentist, but Saul immediately refuses. The community cannot risk anyone leaving and exposing their location. Instead, they solve the problem the old-fashioned way. They grab pliers and pull his tooth out right there. Later that night, Francoise invites Richard for a walk on the beach. The glowing water lights up beneath them as they swim together. She admits that she really likes him, but things are complicated because she's still with Etienne. Emotions take over and the two start kissing in the water. They promise to keep everything secret. Not long after, Etienne confronts Richard. Richard tries to play dumb, but Etienne calmly says something surprising. Everybody already knows. Even though his heart is broken, Etienne says he won't stand in their way. He just wants Francoise to be happy, even if it's with Richard. Days continue passing on the island. Then one day, heavy rain begins pouring down. Christo explains that during long rainy periods, it becomes extremely hard to catch fish because the water visibility is terrible. Sometimes a rain lasts weeks, and the entire community starts getting hungry. Determined to prove himself, Richard grabs Christo's fishing gear and swims out into the lagoon. Suddenly, he notices something terrifying: a shark fin slicing through the water. Richard panics and swims towards the shore while the shark chases him. The scene later cuts to the community house, where Richard tells everyone how he supposedly fought off the shark and survived. Everyone cheers for him, impressed by the story, except for Bugs. Bugs mocks him, saying it was probably just a baby shark. Richard snaps back at him, putting him in his place. Sometime later, Saul gathers everyone and announces bad news. Their rice supply has been infected by a fungus, meaning someone will have to travel back to the mainland for supplies. Surprisingly, no one volunteers, so Saul chooses Richard to go with her. He doesn't really have a choice. Before leaving, the community gives him a long list of things they want him to bring back: snacks, batteries, hygiene products, and other items they can't get on the island. Bugs grabs Richard aggressively and warns him to keep his hands off Francoise. When Richard finally reaches civilization, he initially looks forward to air conditioning and cold beer, but almost immediately he remembers why he wanted to escape this world in the first place. Crowds, noise, tourists everywhere. He finally understands why Saul protects the island so fiercely. If people discover it, the paradise will turn into this. Later, at a bar, Richard and Saul run into the surfer guys again, the same ones Richard gave the map to earlier. They excitedly start asking about the island. Richard quickly lies and tells them the map was fake and the island doesn't exist, but the surfers don't believe him. This makes Richard furious and he lashes out at them. Later, Saul asks Richard a direct question: "Did you give them a copy of the map?" Richard lies and says they only saw it briefly. Relieved, Sal believes him. When they return to the island, Richard distributes all the supplies to the happy community members. He even brings Francois a disposable camera as a gift. She asks if anything happened between him and Sal during the trip because rumors are spreading. Richard promises her nothing happened and things return to normal. One peaceful afternoon, Richard is lying in a hammock playing a game when he suddenly hears screams of panic. He runs outside. The Swedish fishermen have been attacked by a shark. One of them is missing a huge piece of his leg and has a massive bite wound in his torso. Richard follows a trail of blood to the beach and finds Christo badly injured and screaming in pain. They bring him inside. Sal offers to take him to the hospital, but only if he promises not to reveal the island's location. Christo refuses. He is now terrified of the water and refuses to leave the island. Sal coldly tells him he has two options: leave or stay and take his chances. Christo stays. One of the Swedish friends dies and is buried, but Christo survives, barely. Days pass and his constant screams of pain begin to disturb the entire community. Eventually, they move him to a tent deep in the woods, away from everyone else. Out of sight, out of mind. Soon after, the community returns to normal life, until one day, Sal takes Richard to the other side of the island and shows him something terrifying. The surfers, and they have the map. Sal becomes furious. The farmers had one rule: no new people. Now outsiders are coming with directions. She orders Richard to wait near the jungle every day and stop them before they reach the beach. Days pass, then weeks. Isolation slowly begins affecting Richard's mind. He begins spying on the farmers, sneaking through the jungle, pretending he's inside a video game. In his mind, the forest becomes a battlefield. The farmers are enemies, the surfers are invaders. His mission is to retrieve the map. Slowly, Richard begins losing his sanity. He even starts seeing visions of Daffy guiding him. Eventually, the surfers arrive on a raft. They reach the hemp fields and start celebrating, thinking they've found paradise, but their excitement attracts the armed farmers. The farmers approach with guns. The surfers try to explain it was a mistake and offer money, but it's too late. One farmer pulls the trigger. Chaos erupts. Two surfers are killed immediately. The last girl runs in panic, but she is also shot. Watching the scene unfold, Richard finally snaps back to reality. He realizes what he has become. He runs back toward the waterfall and returns to the beach community. That night, the group is celebrating 6 years of living on the island. Sal gives a toast for many more years of paradise, but Richard hides in the shadows. He barely recognizes the person he has become. He tries convincing Francois and Etienne to leave the island with him, but Etienne refuses to abandon Christo, whose leg has developed gangrene. While the party continues, Richard quietly enters Christo's tent and he ends his suffering. When Richard comes out, the celebration is suddenly interrupted by the farmers. The lead farmer explains his frustration about more people arriving with maps, threatening his livelihood. He orders the entire community to leave the island. Everyone agrees except Sal. The farmer then gives Sal a revolver with 1 bullet. If she wants to stay, she must kill Richard. Bugs pins Richard against a pole, while Richard begs for mercy. Sal says that keeping paradise requires sacrifices. She pulls the trigger. Click. The gun was loaded with a blank. Richard bursts into laughter. The farmer smirks, realizing the community is already destroyed. Everyone leaves the island on a raft except Sal. Sometime later, Richard is sitting in an internet cafe checking his emails. He receives a photo from France, the last group picture from the island, and Richard realizes something important. Paradise isn't a place, it's just a moment in life when you feel like you belong, and once you experience it, it stays with you forever. If you like the video, then please like, share, and subscribe our channel.